The Seductive Librarian, Reddit confession of my unexpected encounter. I have a confession to make. This is something that happened to me a few years ago, but I've never shared the story with anyone. I guess I was just too embarrassed, or maybe I didn't want to ruin the perfect memory that had been etched into my mind. But now, I feel like it's time to share my story, to get it off my chest, so to speak. At the time, I was a college student, a typical bookworm who spent more time in the library than anywhere else on campus. I was studying for my midterms, and the library had become my home away from home. The smell of books, the hushed whispers, and the quiet atmosphere just did something for me. It was like my safe haven. One day, I stumbled upon the most beautiful woman I had ever seen in my life. She was a librarian in our college library, and she was absolutely stunning. She had long, dark hair that cascaded down her back in soft waves, and her eyes were a deep, mesmerizing shade of blue. Her figure was like that of a goddess, with curves in all the right places. She was the embodiment of elegance and sophistication, a rare gem in the dusty sea of academia. From that moment on, I became infatuated with her. I would visit the library even more frequently just to catch a glimpse of her. She had this aura about her, a kind of magnetic pull that was impossible to resist. I found myself lingering at the checkout counter, hoping to engage her in conversation. Sometimes I would ask for her help in finding books, even though I knew exactly where they were. I just wanted to be near her, to hear her speak and see her smile. As the weeks went by, we got to know each other a little better. I discovered that her name was Corina and that she was as smart as she was beautiful. She had a degree in literature and could quote poetry like it was nothing. She was well versed in the classics, and I would often find her nose buried in a book during her breaks. One afternoon, I found myself in the library once again, searching for a particular book that I needed for an assignment. The library was surprisingly empty that day, with only a few students scattered around the various tables and study areas. As I wandered through the stacks, searching for the elusive book, I heard the sound of footsteps approaching. I looked up, and there she was, Corina, my seductive librarian. She was wearing a dark, figure-hugging dress, and her hair was pulled up into a messy bun. Her eyes were framed by a pair of black-rimmed glasses, which only added to her allure. Looking for something, she asked, her voice like velvet. I'm looking for this book, I stammered, showing her the title on my phone. She smiled and gestured for me to follow her. We walked together through the aisles, our footsteps echoing softly against the hushed silence of the library. My heart was pounding in my chest, and my palms were sweaty. I couldn't believe I was alone with her, walking side by side like this. Finally, we reached the section where the book was supposed to be. Corina scanned the shelves, her fingers trailing along the spines of the books as she searched for the title. I couldn't help but watch her, completely captivated by her every movement. Here it is, she said, pulling the book from the shelf and handing it to me. Our fingers brushed against each other as I took the book, sending a jolt of electricity through my entire body. Thank you, I whispered, my voice barely audible. You're welcome, she replied, her eyes locked onto mine. There was a spark there, a connection that I couldn't ignore. I knew I had to say something, to take advantage of this rare moment alone with her. Corina, I have to tell you something, I blurted out, my voice trembling with nerves. She raised an eyebrow, her gaze never leaving mine. Yes, I can't stop thinking about you. Ever since I first saw you here in the library, you've been on my mind. I know it's crazy, but I just had to tell you. Corina looked at me for a moment, her expression unreadable. I held my breath, waiting for her reaction, praying that she wouldn't laugh at me or dismiss my confession. To my surprise, she smiled, a warm, genuine smile that lit up her entire face. I'm flattered, she said softly, and to be honest, I've noticed you too. You're always so focused and dedicated to your studies. It's quite attractive. My heart soared at her words, and I couldn't help but grin like an idiot. Really? She nodded, her eyes filled with a mischievous glint. Yes, really. Now, since we're being honest with each other, I have a confession of my own. What is it? I asked, my curiosity piqued. Corina leaned in closer, her lips brushing against my ear as she whispered, I've always had a bit of a fantasy about a library rendezvous. There's something about the forbidden nature of it, the thrill of being caught, that I find incredibly enticing. My heart raced at her words, and my body began to react to the suggestive tone of her voice. Are you serious? I whispered back, barely able to contain my excitement. Very, she replied, her breath hot against my neck. What do you say? Are you willing to indulge me in this fantasy? It felt like a dream, the beautiful librarian I had been infatuated with for weeks, confessing her desires to me. I couldn't believe my luck, and there was no way I could say no. I'm in. I told her, my voice filled with determination. Corina grinned and took my hand, leading me deeper into the library, to a secluded corner where we would be hidden from prying eyes. My heart hammered in my chest as we walked, our fingers intertwined. This was really happening, and I couldn't wait to see where this adventure would take us. As we reached our destination, Corina turned to face me, her eyes burning with desire. She leaned in and pressed her lips against mine, and I felt like I was floating on a cloud. Her kiss was intoxicating, filled with a passion that I had never experienced before. Our bodies pressed against each other, and I could feel her warmth, her heart beating in time with mine. Our kisses grew more heated, and our hands began to explore each other's bodies. The thrill of being in the library, of potentially being discovered, only served to heighten the excitement of the moment. We were both lost in our desires, our inhibitions thrown to the wind as we gave into the passion that had been building between us. As our encounter reached its crescendo, we clung to each other, our breaths mingling as we shared a final, passionate kiss. It was a moment I would never forget, an experience that would forever be etched into my memory. Eventually, we pulled away from each other, our breaths heavy and our bodies flushed. Karina looked at me, her eyes filled with warmth and affection. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft and tender. "Thank you," I replied, my heart still racing from the intensity of our encounter. We shared a gentle, lingering kiss before gathering ourselves and straightening our clothes. The reality of where we were began to sink in, and we both knew we couldn't stay hidden in this corner forever. As we walked back through the library, hand in hand, I couldn't help but feel a sense of elation. I had never imagined that something like this could happen to me, that I would be able to share such a powerful connection with someone as beautiful and intelligent as Karina. From that day forward, our relationship continued to grow, both in and out of the library. We found that we had more in common than just our love for books and our shared fantasy, and we soon became inseparable. Our connection was undeniable, and I knew I had found something truly special in Karina. In the years since our first encounter, our love has only grown stronger. We've had countless adventures together, and our passion for each other has never waned. As I sit here, writing this confession, I can't help but smile as I think back to that fateful day in the library. That day, I found more than just a book on a shelf. I found love, passion, and a connection that has changed my life forever. And for that, I will always be grateful to the seductive librarian who captured my heart. So, there you have it, my Reddit confession. It's a story that has been locked away in my heart for years, but now it's out there for the world to see. I hope that by sharing this, I can inspire others to take a chance on love, even when it seems like the most unlikely of places. Sometimes, the most extraordinary things can happen in the most ordinary of places, like a college library. Well, with that, I'm off to the library. I'll read your comments when I get back. When you subscribe, be sure to click the notification bell. Click here for more Tangled threads.